The Apostle Paul appears to have come from a very elite background. His family was very religiously observant, from the tribe of Benjamin. He had made a good name for himself as a Pharisee, and he was well known for his zeal and for his wisdom. He was very well educated. We can tell that from the Greek that he wrote. That was a very well-constructed Greek. He was obviously an educated man. And he also told us that he learned at the feet of one of the most famous rabbis there was, a rabbi named Gamaliel in Jerusalem. First century, if you wanted to be a Pharisee, that was like going to Harvard. And many thought that Paul might be the one who takes his place, the one who ends up being the person that everyone wants to learn from, and all parents want to send their children to learn under him. That was his plan A. But that was before Jesus abruptly disrupted his life on the way to Damascus. And once Jesus entered his life, he had to give all of that away. He lost everything that he had been working toward. But did that make him bitter? Did that turn him toward anger or discontent with what God has given him? Not at all. In fact, in chapter 3 of this letter to the Philippians, he said, "I consider everything a loss because of the surpassing worth of knowing Christ Jesus my Lord, for whose sake I have lost all things. I consider them garbage, that I may gain Christ and be found in him." He said that he had lost all things for the sake of Christ. He lost all of his credibility. He lost all of his notoriety. All the plans that he made before were gone. And worse than that, he was now the victim of oppression and persecution. He had been arrested. He was beaten. He was starved. At various points, things looked very hopeless for Paul. And here Paul says, good. Everything that I had before Christ was all garbage anyway. He realized that before he knew Jesus, before Christ entered into his life, he never had enough. But now that he has Jesus, he has more than enough. And you might think, well, he's probably writing from a good place in his life right now. He's talking about joy and contentment and gratitude. Things must be going well for him. No, he's in chains. When he writes this letter to the Philippians, he's basically under house arrest in Rome. This person who used to have it all figured out, he used to have his life going according to plan A, now he had to rely on the generosity of other people for food and for help. In fact, one of the reasons why he writes this letter in the first place is to say thank you to the Philippian church for what they did. They sent him an offering. And that's a good reminder for all of us that as a church, we can be that vehicle to bring God's blessings to those who are in need. So part of the reason why he wrote this letter was it was a thank you note to say to the Philippians, thank you for the offering that you had given and that has now been delivered to me. He says in verse 18, "I am amply supplied, now that I have received from Epaphroditus the gifts you sent. They are a fragrant offering, an acceptable sacrifice, pleasing to God." It's a wonderful way to say thanks for the care package. Paul was relying on the generosity of other people. And by this point, he probably thought he would be supporting himself, teaching as a rabbi, living as a Pharisee, and everything that comes with that. But now God had given him the strength to be content with God's plan instead. And Christ had given him the strength to know that he would still be well taken care of, even if that means simply by the generosity of others.